Why did Jungkook shed tears in front of all the cameras? What made him apologize to Taehyung with a trembling voice, amidst an atmosphere that was supposed to be full of laughter? The army is silent, but not because of happiness. A belated apology? Or is there something bigger and darker behind those tears? Jungkook couldn't hold back the tears. The moment of apology for Taehyung that made the army speechless. Have you ever seen someone you love ask for forgiveness with great regret, while his tears could not stand it, and the words that came out of his mouth like crawling because he was squeezed by such a heavy feeling of guilt? That's what happened to Jungkook. Not in a drama. Not in a music video based on a script. It's real. It's raw. It's emotional. And this left the entire army world speechless, holding their breath and asking, what really happened between Jungkook and Taehyung? It all started in a seemingly ordinary silence. A small, not-so-formal event was the scene of one of the most mentally powerful idols in the K-pop world. Jungkook stood up, his eyes glazed from the start, and as he began to speak, the world seemed to stop spinning. I'm sorry, Taehyung. That was the word that came out of his lips. But what struck was not only his words, except the way he said it. Sound vibrations, the way he looked down, the way his shoulders trembled. And what struck the most was Taehyung's gaze that didn't look away for a second from Jungkook, with eyes that were difficult to translate. Was it an old wound that opened up again? Or is it precisely the wounds that have never healed, which have been covered by their smiles in front of the cameras all this time? Why should Jungkook apologize in public? Don't they always seem so close? What could happen between two best friends who have grown up together for over a decade? Suddenly, all the memory of them pops up in Army's head. All the funny moments, all the hugs, all the loving looks. But also all the strange looks, the forced smiles, and the silence between the laughs. Was it all a clue all along? Is there something that was hidden and is now finally beginning to be revealed? Jungkook continued his speech, but his voice broke. I know, I hurt you, even though I didn't intend to. I'm just too busy chasing myself. I'm too hard on myself, but I'm harder on you. As the words were spoken, not a single sound was heard from the crowd. Even the camera, which is usually busy hunting for moments, looks doubtful. All witnessed two friends who seemed to represent millions of souls, facing wounds they never showed. The question is, what did Jungkook do to make him feel guilty like that? Is it related to a music project? With personal life? Or is it about something deeper? A betrayal you never imagined? Or a secret too heavy to share? It happened so fast, but it felt eternal. As Jungkook's tears began to flow, Taehyung stood up, not with anger, not with a smile, but with a look that carries the weight of years. He didn't hug Jungkook, did not immediately answer. He said only one sentence that made the thousands of ARMY who watched immediately fell silent in the most emotional silence. It takes time, Kook. Need some time? Time to forgive? Time to forget? Or time to unravel everything? From that moment on, speculation exploded. Not just among the army, but also the media, industry observers, and even insiders who began to whisper about the old friction that has been closely guarded. But even more surprising was when recordings of their old training sessions began to circulate. In one of the videos taken a few months ago, it appears that Jungkook and Taehyung are discussing, or rather, arguing. Voices are not clear, but their facial expressions are quite speaking. And just then, Jungkook left the room with a blank expression, while Taehyung stared at the floor for almost a minute. Was it the beginning of a small rift between them? The question is no longer whether Jungkook and Taehyung ever quarreled, but what is really at stake in their relationship? Friendship? Trust? Or is there something more personal? A misunderstanding? Or a decision made by one of them that changed everything? Some army members recalled an old interview in which Jungkook said, "I sometimes feel bad for Taehyung. He's always there, but I don't always see him." Those words at that time felt ordinary. But now, as if to be a prologue to this unscripted real drama. Why is the apology coming now? Is this because something is going to happen? Will Taehyung leave the group? Is this a sign that something between them can't go back to the way it was? What is certain is that, since that moment, the interaction of the two has become an extraordinary highlight. Every gaze, every movement of the hands, every distance between them is analyzed. And, to be honest, something feels different. But have we as an army missed anything during this time? Are we too busy idolizing them, forgetting that they are also human beings? That behind the stage, behind the spotlight, there is a heart that can crack, there is a feeling that can be tired. Jungkook was never known as someone who cried easily. It is the golden mean, the perfect, the strong. But when someone like her can no longer hold back tears, then we know it's no small thing. This is no ordinary apology. This is an overflow of the soul that has withstood too much, and perhaps this is the beginning of a new chapter. Will Taehyung forgive Jungkook completely? Or did the apology come too late? More importantly, what will happen to both of them after this? In his silence, Taehyung once wrote a lyric that now feels so relevant. Sometimes it hurts the most when the person you trust the most doesn't realize they've left you alone. Is it about Jungkook? Or is it about all of us who never realized that behind BTS's bright smile, there is an invisible wound? One thing is certain. That night, ARMY witnessed something more than just a performance. They witnessed two souls trying to heal. But not all wounds can be healed with just a word of forgiveness. The question now is this the beginning or the breakup? And from that day on, the world seemed to change. There was no official statement from the agency, no clarification from other members. There are no behind-the-scenes videos to remove the big questions hanging in the air. In fact, it was the silence that made it all feel more gripping. It was as if the whole world was given a chance to reflect and grope for the truth hidden behind Jungkook's tears and Taehyung's poignant words. But is it possible that we have all missed the signs all along? Some observant army began to collect clues scattered over time. The moment when Jungkook and Taehyung are seen sitting far apart at the airport. The moment when Taehyung did not participate in one of the group's live broadcasts, citing lack of health. But the look in his eyes in the last selfie seemed to cover up a storm of unbearable emotions. The moment in the final concert, where Jungkook seemed too quiet while singing their duet part. At that time, fans only thought it was due to fatigue. But now? Is it an alarm that we ignore? Then, someone uploaded a long-forgotten clip, an old interaction between Jungkook and Taehyung on their variety show. Back then, Jungkook said, "I know I can lean everything on you, but I'm afraid I'll hurt you if I'm too selfish." Taehyung replied quickly, "You won't hurt me because I know you." But the night of the apology proved otherwise. Either Jungkook really hurt her, or Taehyung was just trying to get by with a wound that was getting deeper by the day. The question now is, when did the cracks start appearing? Some say it all started when their solo project was launched. Great pressure, global expectations, and differences in vision among members can be invisible seeds of conflict. Jungkook, who is known to be a perfectionist and very obsessed with quality, may be too harsh when giving input. Taehyung, with his artistic spirit and high sensitivity, could feel unappreciated. Or maybe it's something more personal. Some fans familiar with the dynamic of the two began to speculate about feelings that were never truly revealed. That there is something deeper than just a professional quarrel. Something that involves trust, openness, and perhaps a sense of mutual need that is never acknowledged. Jungkook always referred to Taehyung as Hyung, who taught me how to love myself. But loving someone doesn't always mean knowing how to keep them around. That night, after his apology, Jungkook did not immediately leave the room. He stood there, looking down, even as everyone began to move. He was standing in the middle of a room that was slowly becoming quiet, and perhaps for the first time in his life, he felt completely alone. The still camera shows him wiping his face, taking a deep breath, then looking towards Taehyung's seat. His face looks like someone who has lost something very valuable, or realized something that he should have realized much earlier. Taehyung, if you listen to this, I'll wait for you. That sentence doesn't sound like an ordinary statement. That sounds like someone who doesn't know if he's going to get a second chance. And maybe he knew that he didn't deserve it. From then on, the public waited. Will Taehyung respond? Will there be a reunion, a hug of peace, or at least a smile that can assure that everything is fine? But time goes on, and silence is precisely the biggest question mark. Then came that night, the night when Taehyung performed solo for the first time after that apology incident. All eyes were on him. All hope is worried. And even more touching was when he performed a song that had never been released before. The title is just one word: forgiveness. The lyrics are like splitting the heart of anyone who. But is it really only time that will be decisive? Or is it the distance that separates the two souls that used to be inseparable? Surprisingly, a few weeks after Jungkook's live broadcast, ARMY discovered that Taehyung had suddenly unfollowed Jungkook's Instagram account. Although it was only a few hours before it was finally followed back, the moment was enough to shake the fandom. Social media is on fire. The hashtag #YTaehyung has been trending in 24 countries. Speculation swelled. Theory after theory emerged like an unstoppable storm. Was it just a technical error? Is it a signal of hidden anger? Or could it mean something much deeper, something we're all afraid of? Then, a photo circulated. Not from fan site, not from the agency, but from a little-known account which shoots secretly. Taehyung appears alone in a cafe in Paris, staring blankly out the window, wearing a plain gray hoodie with no makeup, no smile, and no one by his side. His face is not the Taehyung face we are used to seeing on stage. He looks like someone who is carrying a burden that is too heavy to share. And in his hand, there appeared to be a small notebook open, with blank pages except for one sentence caught on camera. Forgive him or forget him? The ARMY cried at that. That sentence wasn't just a question for Taehyung, it was like a question for all of us. What would we do if we were in his position? And as if that wasn't heartbreaking enough, Jungkook's latest interview with a Japanese magazine reveals a side that has never been shown. When asked about the thing he regretted the most throughout his career, he was silent for quite a long time. When you realize that honesty can hurt the people you want to protect the most, it's not a victory, it's a failure. The interview went viral. Thousands of ARMY quoted the phrase and shared it with tearful captions. Some even started writing open letters to Taehyung, asking that he give Jungkook a chance. But is it really just about a second chance? Or does Taehyung feel that he has given up too many opportunities, too much, and for too long? What makes everything even more confusing is the attitude of the agency that remains silent. There were no statements, no clarifications, not even attempts to defuse speculation. As if they allowed this wound to develop before the eyes of millions of people, without medicine, without explanation. The ARMY began to feel that something bigger was being hidden. Is this just a personal conflict? Or does it have something to do with the agency's internal pressure on members trying to express themselves freely? One big fan site released a shocking statement. They claim to have received an anonymous DM from someone claiming to be HYB staff. In the DM, it was written that the moment of Jungkook's apology to Taehyung was not actually scheduled in the show's script. It happened spontaneously, and after the filming was over, the atmosphere became very tense backstage. It was even mentioned that one of the managers had to separate them due to heightened emotions. Does this mean that the apology was not warmly received? Does Taehyung feel betrayed because personal issues are brought to the camera? Did we not realize that night was not the beginning of healing, but the beginning of separation? More surprisingly, on his birthday, Jungkook released a short song that he composed himself. No label, no advertising, just posted on SoundCloud. The title, to you, if you're still listening, in the 2-minute 47-second song, Jungkook's voice sounds so raw, without auto-tune, without smoothing. Every word is like a whispered cry. If time could go back,